Our next guest is Jeff Lewis. He is the National Director of Patriot Coalition and the National Director of the Federal Immigration Reform and Enforcement Coalition, FIRE. Jeff is a four-time cancer survivor and veteran of Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Over the past 8 years, Jeff has testified before state legislators across the country, consulted and advised federal, state, and local candidates for office on immigration, national security, and constitutional issues. He has hosted national security conferences across the country and worked tirelessly with members of Congress, law enforcement, and his favorite, the Patriots. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to ACON 2, Jeff Lewis.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If your ears aren't bleeding by now, if you've been here since noon, God bless you to give up such a beautiful Saturday to listen to us folks.
And Jeff, can you shut the feed off to the show because we're getting double looped, please?
All right. I was going to blame that on you. That may be in where the audio feedback was coming from as well. When Dan asked me to talk about how to start a national campaign, I was torn because between Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition, we've got a transition. Fire Coalition is 11 years old this year, and Patriot Coalition is 6 years old. And there was a time when members of the Homeland Security's Countering Violent Extremism working group referred to us as the largest nativist extremist group in the country, claimed that I belong to several anti-government groups, and run three. And I say I don't belong to any anti-government groups. I belong to several anti-corrupt government groups. And it's been a pleasure and an honor working with the folks at PANDA and with the same leadership and the same mindset at the Solutions Institute that don't see things from a left-right paradigm. They look at the way we do a Patriot Coalition. It's a matter of right and wrong, not left and right. And the political elite on both sides have made not just a career, but they've accumulated a tremendous amount of power consolidated into the hands of a few by playing the left-right paradigm. People on the left, the minute I called it the aisle of shame that separates the left and the right in the legislatures and in Congress, that they can't even reach across the aisle and shake somebody else's hand without worrying about getting bit or spit on. And something I've told Dan several times, we the people is everybody from the church lady to the Hell's Angel, and everybody in between that are Americans. And it doesn't matter whether if you're a religious or a spiritual person, this or not. This country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles and values. And whether you're looking at the Bible or you're looking at the Constitution and Bill of Rights, are organic documents, the principles are the same. And our government was set up to protect both all of us and the individuals as well. So with Fire Coalition, as far as national campaigns, and we've had several projects over the years, like I said, I was concerned that I might be repeating what some of the other speakers had said because I was not available to listen constantly. But I did hear a few things that the lady that just spoke said, and one of the first speakers this afternoon said that I wanted to speak to briefly. I'll hold off on that a second. Um, when you talk about you're looking at doing a national campaign, generally it's because you're interested in changing something beyond your neighborhood, your community, your state, something that impacts the entire country. There are folks that want to do an international campaign, and there's different ways to approach it. Now, one of the things that has really impressed me with the folks from Panda is their passion and their resolve. That you know, they, we the people have been told our vote don't matter, our vote don't count. That the status quo power brokers want us to believe that we can't make a difference. Well, and I'm going to quote somebody that Dan told me one of the other speakers didn't think too highly of. But Thomas Jefferson said, "One man with courage is a majority." Now, those of you that know Daphne Lee out in Nevada, it applies to one woman with courage as well. One person can make a tremendous difference if they are speaking from their heart and they know what they're talking about and they're being honest. Honesty is the best policy. If you're telling the truth, you don't have to remember the lie. And the truth is good for people from that consider themselves liberal or conservative or neither. The truth doesn't need a lot of explanation, and the truth will set us all free. One of the things that Benjamin Franklin said was that not to be too harsh on our fellow citizens, because at some point we needed to put our differences aside and work together for the common good. And if you're planning on conducting a national campaign on any issue, you're not going to be able to accomplish your mission with just people from the left or just people from the right or just people that are unaffiliated independent. You won't do it with just Christians or just Catholics or just Muslims or just atheists. We the people's a little bit of everybody. The thing you want to look for are honest people. And you are going to need a network of people. But before you jump off into launching a national campaign, and I've done just give you a quick exposure to two of those. In 2006, we launched a campaign called Operation Body Count. Now, we had done some research. We had identified a problem, and we wanted to address this problem. I won't get into the details of what the problem was, but we found folks that were also interested in this issue in every time zone in the country. We put together an event. People like to be entertained these days, and unfortunately, just educating folks on the issues is not good enough. There has to be some entertainment value in there. Thoreau said, if you're going to tell people the truth, you better make them laugh or they'll kill you. Well, we put together about an hour-long, I'll call it a play, but it was a presentation that started with the town crier with that bell they rang. Ding, 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 hear you, everybody come near, I got something to say. Just to get people's attention, conducted the event not at 3 o'clock everywhere. We did it simultaneously. So on Pacific time zone, it was at noon, moving east, Mountain 1, Central 2, Eastern 3. So it was actually a simultaneous public event, a public square, near the state capitol or City Hall, depending on where we were, where they were conducting the event. That was for the public. That was on Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 26, 2006. On Monday, we went to the state legislatures across the country. and hand delivered proclamations. Let the folks know, let the legislators know where we were coming from. That was the beginning of a three-phase national campaign that probably, let's see, about 7 months later, resulted in a 3-day event on the Mall in Washington that started on Flag Day, June 14th, 15th, and 16th. Now, was it like the 9/12 March where you had 1 million people or more? No. I think the most people we had at that third event cycle were probably 400 or 500 people that stuck around all day at the mall. But we made inroads with a coalition of groups. Now, with any national campaign, I don't care what your issue is, there's probably already somebody out there that's unless you have invented a new wheel or discovered a new issue that needs to be addressed on a national level, there's probably somebody out there that's already done some research on it and maybe try to take action on it that you can learn from or partner with. I don't remember specifically which founder it said this, but there's no limit to what you can accomplish if you're not worried about who gets the credit. Is it about the message or is it about the messenger? So when you're going to look at a national campaign, pick your issue, make sure it's worth the time. One of the things I talked to Dan the other night about that I know he has, and I gave him a specific example I won't bore you with. I'm trying to watch my time here. That you need to be passionate about the issue. You need to have some conviction, because just having a passion, which is what will get you to fuss about it or worry about it, is not enough. You need to be convicted, have conviction, and you need to have resolve. The problems we're facing in this country today, we didn't get into overnight. We won't get out of overnight. If you're going to do a national campaign, you can either recruit and train your own people, or you can look to partner, build coalitions with other folks. It's been our policy, both at Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition, that the best use of our manpower and resources was to train the trainers. And that was, if it was our state and local leadership or regional leadership, or even our national leadership, if we're bringing somebody new on board. And Mr. Johnson can tell you, we do things a little different at the groups I run than what most would expect. And that does keep our opposition guessing as to what to expect next out of us. So you want to train the trainers. One of the gentlemen that spoke earlier talked about being feared, that if these politicians don't fear you, they're going to ignore you. Well, our policy has been, you want to be feared and revered. And you want your enemies, your political adversaries, to fear you. When you walk in the door, you want their heads to hang their back. And the reason they're hanging their heads is because you've done your homework, you've done your research, you know what you're talking about, and you're able to stick to the issues and not allow people to push your buttons. When I was in the Navy, and I'll clean this up a little bit, one aw shucks wipes out 1,000 attaboys. If you're going to run a national campaign, you do have to stay on message. It needs to be a short, sweet message. We have such a short attention span and a microwave mentality that if you don't get the message really quick, you're not going to get it at all. You want your adversaries to fear you. You want your allies to revere you, because they know that you don't have a hidden agenda. Which is why I say honesty is the best policy. There are a lot of folks out there running national campaigns and organizations that have hidden agendas. And it's either because of a hidden agenda that if they told you up front what they were really wanting to accomplish, you'd be dead set against it, or because they've sold out to some sponsor or benefactor that's it's not even their agenda that they're promoting or their campaign anymore. They're on the hook to somebody else, beholding. Now, the things that the gentleman said, I can tell you that of our peer groups and the campaigns they've run, just with Fire Coalition, I could say FAIR, Numbers USA, the Minuteman Project, the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps, most of them which started before Fire Coalition did, or either, well, FAIR's been around since '79. Most of them were 2000 to 2004 timeframe. These organizations rake in millions of dollars a year. Some of them brought in more in 1 month than we brought in 10 years. But we're all volunteers, so we're not beholden to anybody. If you're going to run a national campaign, is it going to be your mission, your campaign, or is it going to be somebody else's? We've accomplished more, and Dan's gone with us to what we call the belly of the beast. And I'm not sure Stuart spoke first. Stuart Rhodes from Oath Keepers went with us. Fire Coalition and Patriot Coalition, there is not happy with their work product these days, but a Congressional Constitution Caucus exists solely because of a couple of meetings that we had with Republican and Democrats in Congress in 2007, 2008 timeframe. That there needed to be somebody up there that was actually vetting and looking at the legislation through a constitutional lens. You have to have patience with a national campaign. You have to have resolve. That if you want to set up a huge infrastructure, and like I said, up till 2011 or so, we were the largest immigration reform group. If you looked at the number of state and local chapters we had and the amount of leadership we had that we published. But we've morphed more into a think tank and a policy and legislation and resolution development mode. So if I look at what has been accomplished in the battle against the NDAA, that was a national campaign that the work product was developed in cooperation with the Patriot Coalition and Oath Keepers. Stuart Rhodes, constitutional lawyer with a specialty on the application of military laws, civilian populations, and our general counsel. And then my military and constitutional background between the three of us, we developed the work product. And then Dan and Panda and awesome people that he's recruited and built with Panda's national campaign to combat the NDAA, took our work product and ran with it and did an awesome job. Now, we work, unfortunately, primarily with conservatives and Republicans and independents because most liberals and Democrats won't give us the time of day because they have stereotyped us. We'll work with anybody that's willing to be honest with us. We don't like working with liars and thieves. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they sit on.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jeff Lewis. ACON2 is happy to have you with us. It's a great presentation, and I have some questions for you, please.
Certainly, because if you don't shut me up, I'll keep rambling.
One of the problems many people have with starting a national campaign is finding volunteers because it often can't be done alone. Do you have any tips for finding and retaining volunteers when starting a national campaign?
Do a search for the topic. And you can go to, you're familiar with Meetup. There's several social media, such as Twitter, Facebook, Google. You search for some of the key words associated with what the issue is, and you'll find people and organizations, both formal that are for profit, NGOs, and grassroots groups. I mean, they're everywhere. All you got to do is search. Just a simple Google search can give you a quick list of who's tracking on this issue.
Is there any indications to look for so you know when to be the man or woman behind the scenes versus the one in front of the cameras?
I'll give you an example of a public debate we did. Well, certainly, um, for Fire Coalition, we had one of the things we fight for are victims' families. Now, you can fight for victims' families on any issue. There is nothing more. I can get up and express my righteous indignation about an egregious action that the government is doing or not doing that has made somebody a victim, may have cost them their kid's life or a spouse's life, a family member's life. I can have all the facts in the world. There's nothing more compelling than having a victim's mother, a victim's dad, a victim's grandmother in front of that camera. They're going to be a lot more courteous. The media, the public servants will all be a lot more respectful and less caustic dealing with the actual victims' families, even though they may not be able to speak to the proposed legislation as well as you or your attorneys or experts can. But they're much more compelling in front of the camera than a stuffy lawyer or a disgruntled veteran. There are, there are other times,
What response?
uh, real quick, there's other times with testimony, for example, before hearings or you're doing a briefing, you want your experts, you want your attorneys and your scholars to be speaking because they're the ones that will be able to actually answer the questions that they're going to get back from legislators and lawyers.
What response would you give to people who say that we only need to focus on local campaigns and nationwide campaigns are a waste of time?
Well, they do say all politics is local, but if and I'm rather fond of the United States, plural, and there are 50 of them. If all I focus on, well, I even got to look at the whole country. If I just look at my local community, or the town, the county, um, everything that's impacting my pursuits of happiness and my freedom, my liberty, is not just coming from my local area. Sometimes it's coming from a national or even an international a threat. You need to do if it's something that is in the purview of Congress to do, and they're the only ones that have the authority to pass the legislation to either right the wrong or to fix the problem. Then you're going to have to do a national campaign because one congressmen and senators from one state can't make anything happen on Capitol Hill. So who has the authority? Is it something that under the 10th Amendment was enumerated to the feds or prohibited to the states, or was something that was retained by the states or the people? Who is the cognizant authority? Who can solve your problem determines whether it's a local, state, national campaign that you need to consider.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. Really appreciate the great presentation. And and always enjoy working with you, and certainly we'll be enjoying working with you in the future. And we look forward to having you on again. You need to come back for the next ACCON.